And before we dive into today's exciting interview, I'd like to give a quick shout out to Books to Life Marketing, the team making it all possible. They specialize in helping authors bring their stories to life through expert publishing, marketing, and media exposure. They're behind some of the most inspiring authors' journeys we've seen. If you're an author, elevate your book. Books to Life Marketing is the partner you want in your corner. And our guest today is Levanah, and we're going to talk about her book, A Fairy Story, Saving the Green. How are you, Levanah? And great to talk to you again today about another one of your books. And what made you this author, right? You went from talking about really what you do as a healer to doing a book like this.
I basically really do self-help because I give people skills to change their lives, but I couldn't help it. I moved out here in the green area, the canyons, and the fairies came to me and they talked to me, okay? That was a difficult time in my life. My husband had died from an auto accident, and I really wanted to change where I was living. And I was living in a kind of country place, but I found this place and I moved in, and there I was. And green heals you. We all know that. There's all these stories about it. There's these studies that if you are in a hospital and you look out the window and see the trees, it's healing. There are people who go to the forest and bathe themselves now in the forest. It's a new trend. But there I was, and the fairies started to talk to me. They said, what's happening on the planet is very worrying to us because they're a separate race. They're invisible to us most of the time, but many people have stories about them. Okay, anywhere I go, because I travel a lot teaching, people will tell me stories.
So the green, and that's so amazing when you talk about living a green and it heals. I wouldn't think green heals. Is that why people love going to places that are more quiet and peaceful, forests or different places, and they feel like they're healed in so many aspects?
There's a trend to that now, that you should go, especially if you live in the city, you spend a weekend in the forest. And they call it bathing in the green, bathing in the forest. But what happened to me was that when the fairies came and spoke to me, they basically said to me, we're very upset about what's going on the planet. We're two different races. We were both here originally, but the fairies are the race that nurture and take care of the planet. They're part of the planet. They are part of nature. We're part of nature, but we can get in a rocket and go somewhere else, okay? They can't. This is totally their whole job in life is taking care of the planet. And they're a little bit upset about what's happening with the planet now. So they said to me, talk to people. Tell them about us, okay? And I went, nobody's going to believe me if I write a book and I say, there are these fairies and there's this race and they're invisible except when they don't want to be invisible. And they're a separate race that live here and you can meet them. So I decided to write a fiction fantasy to show people what the fairies are like, to illustrate the life of how the fairies live. And so I wrote a fiction fantasy that is what people are calling an ecological fantasy, but that says it tries to give you as much of vision of what the fairies are like, really. But of course, it's an adventure novel where this young woman gets told that she really comes from a family that has fae blood in it, that once upon a time, one of her grandfathers was a fairy, and that her father had been a champion for the fairies, but now she's alone. Her parents had passed on. Her husband passed on from an accident. She's all alone, and this fae king comes to her and says, I need help. There's a problem on the planet, and I need help. And you're from the family that champions us. And she says, I don't know what you're talking about. And he says, yeah. And she says, where are you from? And he says, I'm from the kingdom of, I listen to the queen. And she says, what country is that? And he says, no, it's not a country. It's the Fae kingdom. It's the fairies all over the world. And she says, okay, I want to know about my family, so I will help you. And they travel across the globe, meeting mermaids, elementals. They struggle to find the reason why there was a problem on the planet that threatened the planet, and they find their answer together. That's the story of the book, but really what the book is a combination of the main character, Merrilee. it's her quest to find who she really is, her authentic self, okay? And they travel through the ley lines. So they're not traveling on the planet because the fairy king, he can't get on an airplane, okay? They go in the invisible lines through the planet that go from one spot to another, and they have to walk. And they have to go the old lines because the queen is very angry with the Fae King because she thinks he was the cause of the problem, and that's why he wants to solve the issue. So he takes her through the old way, and the old way is they've got to walk long ways underground through these beautiful tunnels that irradiate extremely gorgeous light.
I have to ask you, maybe the fairies are calling you right now. So really fairies spoke to you. So talk about that. So there are fairies. Explain that, Levanah.
Yes, there are fairies, and they are a real race. They are the race. See, they're what we will eventually evolve into, but we won't be the keepers of the planet necessarily. But the way that they live is what we will evolve into. So let me explain what that means, okay? Because you're wondering.
Yeah, that's where I wanted to jump into that question, but you've been giving some great information about the book. But fairies spoke to you. Who are the fairies? Have they ever spoken to me?
I don't know if they've spoken to you. You would have to tell me. Some of the fairies are 6 feet tall and absolutely gorgeous, and they live very long lives. And some of the fairies are the kinds of fairies you think of when you think of Tinkerbell, that are very small and tiny, and they are flower fairy, and they take care of the garden. So there are fairies of different sizes, okay? And there are different fairies. There are the beautiful race of fairies called the Seelie, and then there are the unseelie, the ones that we see as being frightening or ugly or difficult. And that's my second book, so I'm not going to go into the ugly ones that people are afraid of because they're not really ugly. They're just different. The fairies do not live in the time sequence we live in. So when you go and you sit down on a chair, okay, I don't know if you're sitting on a chair right now, but if you're sitting on a chair, your chair, you consider it's there. It's physical. It's real. The fairies, they create a chair. They sit on it. Then they decide they don't want to sit on it anymore. The chair disappears because they create only what they need while they need it, because they are not human. They are a different race of beings who have the ability they can take the whole room and make it look like a forest, for example. And that is what it'll be. And you'll think you're in the forest. And then they'll decide we don't want to have that. We'll make it Elizabethan. We'll have beautiful ornate chairs, and they'll make that. They don't hang on to anything. Nothing is physically forever with them.
So are they like angels? Are fairies like angels?
No, they are not like angels. And some people mistakenly say that they're fallen angels. They are not. They are not angels. They are nature beings who care for the planet. Their whole life is caring for the planet. And the beauty of them is that the beautiful fairies, they're always happy. They remind me of giggling teenagers. They're always happy. They have a job. They're born into that job. They do the job they're born into, okay? So we have free will. We're human beings. We can choose to do the job your father did, and you can say, I don't want to do that. And everybody told you, oh, you'll never be successful at this, but you have free will. You can do whatever you please.
Exactly.
The fairies know. They are born into a specific job, and that's what they do. And they love to party, and they love to have fun, and they love to king all the girl fairies anyway that I met. And they have it's very hard for humans to meet them because humans have all this heavy emotion and they go away they don't have that, and it frightens them. And also humans are very violent as far as they're concerned. Fairies might torture one another once in a while. If you don't do what the queen wants, who's the one who's in charge, who makes everything work, they have magic because they can disappear everything and reappear it. They have a lot of magic, okay? So they're a little dangerous to play with because if they don't like you, they can do all sorts of negative magical things to you, okay? But basically, they like to have a good time, and they do not run those heavy emotions. So if you go into the forest and you're really all emotional and upset, they're going to run away, okay? Because they're afraid of violence of humans. They don't kill one another. They don't understand humans. And so they go away. There was a time early on the planet when we were two races and we were together and they were on the earth with us. And then it didn't work out.
Can you visually see a fairy?
Yes, but you have to understand that if you see them and you really see them clearly, there's a good chance you might actually see through them because they are not totally corporeal.
All right. So let's continue with the book. So basically, they told you to write this book. So you got a lot of different things. So in what ways did your clairvoyant gifts and spiritual insight guide the creation of this story?
The thing is that when I looked at what the fairies do and what happens to the basic characters as they go through this adventure of trying to find out who was the cause. They go to try to find out who was the cause of the great tsunami because they feel somebody caused it, because the fairies know they didn't cause it. Okay. So they want to go find out how this happened because they know somehow a human had to do with it. And as they go through this situation, whenever they hit a struggle or problem or something doesn't work, Merrilee, the character, uses her clairvoyancy because she's a clairvoyant teacher. So she uses her skills. And what I like to do in the book is explain how those skills work. So you can see how somebody with clairvoyancy would actually use a skill and what they would do to get rid of a problem that comes up.
So are you a clairvoyant?
Yes. That's what
divine clairvoyant.
The ability to see colors, pictures, images, and energy.
Okay. So can you predict things?
Sometimes. What I do is I look at what somebody tends to go. You look at the path they tend to go, and you can see they tend to go that way. And you can say, if you keep going on this path, there's a good chance this could happen. I can't always do it perfectly. And sometimes I can see the future, but sometimes not.
Interesting. And it's intriguing. And the fairies are big about the environment and green. So they don't like seeing the environment being destroyed.
They have to fix it. Every time you go out and destroy it, they have to somehow fix it. So they try to rebalance. And as you can see, our planet is not balanced now. And we have big fires and we have floods and we have all sorts of mudslides and problems. And they're out there trying to balance it. And they are controlled by the archangels. Okay, they give them messages. Every day at dawn, the archangels send the angels around to send a message to the fairies what to do that day. Okay. And if you're up at a certain time, which I usually is like 4:30 in the morning when dawn starts, you might see the fairies, not the fairies, the angels, and hear them because they're communicating to the fairies. Okay?
At 4:30.
Dawn, whatever dawn is where you are. Okay. If you meditate and you get very clear and you look and see what's going on, you're going to see this energy going around the planet.
So when did you discover fairies?
Mostly when I moved to my place in the canyons that's very isolated, I would go outside and talk to the trees and talk to the rose bushes, and the fairies would talk to me, okay? And they would say, tell humans, we think maybe it would be good for a change. There was some kind of communication. But they're a happy lot. They like to party. They're party people.
So fairies like to party. But so why do people think they're fallen angels?
I have no idea. Maybe because they have wings. Not all fairies have wings. Not all fairies fly like that. Okay. There are fairies that don't fly, but they do. They can move from one place in the house to another, like instantaneous. Okay. But not all fairies have wings.
Do you hope people that read this book will learn? Because remember you talked about healing in the other book. Do you hope that some will get some clairvoyant skills, or is that something that can't be, that not everyone can have?
Clairvoyancy all the time. Clairvoyancy enables you to see things clearly and to get rid of patterns and programs and emotions that get you stuck, that stop you in relationships or career. So I teach that all the time, but I'm hoping people will start to understand how to make that connection with the nature, because there's a sense now that everybody feels alone. They're sitting at home alone a lot. They don't feel a sense of community and they don't feel connected to nature. And when you lose that connection to nature, you lose that connection to yourself and to your body too. So I think this is a way of healing ourselves as humanity, shifting to understanding that if we heal the planet, we can in a way heal ourselves. And I think that's a very powerful message right now to people, because this is a turning point. And if we don't do anything, we're going to have a lot of problems in the future.
So why do you feel it's so important to merge fantasy, faith, and environmental awareness in today's world?
If I go out and I just say, let's do something to the planet, people are going to go, oh, yeah, I've heard that. I don't know. I'm not sure I know what to do. But if I write a book and I give you a sense of what it's like to speak with the fairies, what it's like to be in touch with the earth, because then it becomes something real to you and it inspires you to want to be on that level and to want to be able to communicate on that level. And that enables people to see themselves in a different way. So I think it's very powerful, actually, to write this as fiction, but to keep a truth to it.
And what do you hope for this book? It's a little different than your other book, and you've written many books as I've just searched and saw. What do you hope from this book that people get, your readers get out of this book the most? What do you hope?
Inspired to be able to feel one with nature, to find a way to find themselves integrated with nature, and hopefully maybe to go out and speak to the fairies, but to understand the essence of what the fairy message is, because it's a very powerful message for us. We are a part of nature. We are not this separate being. We are nature. And if we start to understand that, I think we become much more powerful as human beings. And I think it changes who we are and what we do with ourselves.
I think you're right. And I think that I feel that if we can have sense of peace in our lives, you talked about healing in the other book. You talked about how we can heal others. By getting that time in nature, when I get to walk my dog Chewy every day, I am able to get with nature and I feel different when I go outside with him. And it takes away a lot of the stressors or the different things from walking, but also to feel it. And when I walk out in the backyard in the morning and I can look at it, I feel nature. So I think these are powerful things that I'm learning that I need, where you can slow down and say, okay, this is not going to be, even though my day's crazy, that's why I want a place that you can really feel it and feel the earth and the environment and everything.
It takes the craziness out of your day. It gives you that peaceful calmness. And if your dog is a little bit psychic, okay, and you ask your dog, some dogs can do it, you ask your dog to show you the areas that the fairies work on and that they're really powerful in, your dog might do that. Because, you know, when I was working on my second book, the fairies came in and they followed my kitty around and tried to communicate through her to give me the essence of what they wanted me to write. It was really fascinating, except she started doing what the fairies do. She started doing all little games and little tricks and they're very trickster, the fairies. They can watch you and imitate you, and they think it's really funny. Okay, they can actually look like you for a couple of minutes and imitate you, and they love to play tricks on people. And I suddenly saw my kitty was playing all sorts of little gamey tricks on me, and I went, where did she get that from? Because she never had that nature.
So that's where I see my dog sometimes pull that tricks on me type thing, where he says he wants to go up to the bathroom. I jump out and then he just takes my spot.
That's because he just knows you.
Oh my goodness. It's so interesting what we're learning about fairies and different things. And this book, who is this book for?
I think this book is for everybody. I was really shocked because my publisher had somebody there who was writing about my book, and she said she thought this was a children's book, and it really isn't. It's very much an allegory for adults who are searching for a sense of self and connection with nature. But she said something that really shocked me. She said, this is a book that grandparents, parents, and children could sit and discuss. And I realized there were certain chapters in it that really do discuss all sorts of, issues that are relevant to us now that just came up as part of Merrilee's life. Because as Merrilee is going through her life, that the fairies come and stay at her house and they're going with her. She wanted to go out and see her friend. Her friend said, my child is having a problem and I don't know what to do. And your mother used to help me, but your parents have passed on. So maybe you could help me. You're a clairvoyant. And she says, okay, I'll come over to your house. And the fairies go, You can't go anywhere. We're worried about you because what's going on. And maybe some forces will come and it could be very dangerous. And Merrilee goes, my father trained me in 3 different styles of martial arts. So I'm safe. I can take care of myself. And the fairies go, no, you don't understand our magics. They never taught you that. And she says, but I have to go to my friend. They said, we're going with you. And then they totally flip out that they have to get in a car. They don't know what a car is, to be surrounded by all this mess. They're really uncomfortable. But they go to her friend's house and they start talking to her friend's child and they start helping him because the child had been bullied by another child at school. And the 2 fairies, they're these 2 guys they have swords, they fight, they know how to talk to a young man. And they talk to him and they help him understand what's really happening when he gets bullied and how to stand up to a bully. And that's, to me, that's how the fairies talk about how we train our people to stand up. And we stand up for ourselves. We stand up in a way that works. And they show them just how to stand up to someone without having to fight. Because he said, the young man says, my father told me you should never fight. You should always talk it out. And the 2 fairies go, it doesn't work that way always. Sometimes you have to stand up. And if you stand up right, you don't have to fight because the other person will back down. But if you do have to fight, we're going to show you how to toss them around real quick. We're going to leave you alone. And they show him a simple little martial archer. And the young man is like totally changed because before that he said, I don't want to go to school. I want to get bullied. And his mother didn't know how to deal with it because he wouldn't talk to her. The 2 fairies, he would talk to them. He didn't know who they were. And the mother's always asking Merrilee, where are these people? Who are these beautiful, gorgeous men? These 6-foot gorgeous guys? Where did you get them from? And Merrilee goes, my father's friends from a foreign country, somewhere out near.
All right. So I'm going to ask my dog Chewy to meet a fairy soon. Where's the best place people can buy your book?
It's on Barnes & Noble and Reader's Magnet online.
All right. Appreciate it. That was a great interview. You're listening and watching The Neil Haley Show, and we'll be back in just a moment.